He's giving a platform to them without context or balance. An independent journalist, he is not. But not all those
without context or balance. I reckon that was my favourite line in this entire story. That should be the tagline for the ABC. Without context or balance. Avi Yemini here for Rebel News in Melbourne, Australia. Today we're not in the streets, no pepper spray. No pepper spray. We're actually in the safety of Rukshan's studio. I was sort of invited. I invited myself.
Yeah, he didn't break in.
Didn't break in. Put the guns down. Yeah, all good. It was 100% kosher. But really, why we're here is because I haven't done something like this before. Well, I've done reaction videos, but I've done them by myself. But today I thought it would be great if we do it together because it was kind of just us. The last reaction video I did was, again, also an ABC story where they were mocking me for getting in amongst it, putting myself in the middle of it.
Far-right influencers will put themselves like in the thick of it and then use that footage or use those pictures on their website right next to some merchandise.
People found it as funny as I did, but it was what they called a comedy show on ABC. So that was the excuse for them to underhandedly attack us as independent journalists. But today there's a bit of a more serious one. While we're bantering and having a laugh, Media Watch, which is a serious show watched by many across the country, obviously taxpayer funded, so paid, funded by a lot of people who are watching this, but it's watched by most politicians, most journalists, and many in the public. So I think it's important we actually respond to a lot of the viewers here now. They may not be based in Australia. They may not have ever heard of Media Watch. How would you describe it?
Yeah, so Media Watch is a program on our a national TV broadcasting channel that looks at different types of media, newspapers, television shows, opinion pieces, and then dissects it and gives what's meant to be like a non-biased view of where these opinions come from and should you believe it, should you not believe it. So it lends a lot of credibility to the media that's happening in this country, and that's how they frame themselves, as being a watchdog of sorts.
Exactly, like the name suggests, Media Watch, they are the gatekeepers of what is real and fake news. They love to call out fake news, but guess what? I reckon a lot of this episode they did last week was fake news.
I think so. 100% fake news.
I reckon we'll get straight into it, but before, so people understand the context, it was in regards to some journalists that were out in the field, and some physically, some verbally, attacked. Now, I certainly don't condone attacking any journalists. I think the best way, if you want to confront them, is by conversation. The irony here is that I've been doing this for a while, and before COVID, I know you might not believe this, but I'm not as popular in some groups as I am in the protests we've been covering lately. Yeah. Some people actually... No, I'm serious.
No, I've seen it.
I'm serious. Some people don't like me.
Yeah, that's why you have security.
You seem too quick to accept that some people don't like me, Rukshan. That's
even I don't...
Cut!
Even I didn't like you.
But some people don't like me, and I have often been the target of violent and physical assaults while doing my job. And not once has Paul Barry from Media Watch leapt to my defence. I think that's the platform we should start this off, so people understand. We're not going to. I don't think we need to play the other parts of the other journalists. We get it. Media Watch Paul Barry says that these lockdown protesters were violent, vicious thugs. No matter what anyone says about what they saw live from this guy Rukshan, who was recording everything, there were violent, vicious thugs. There were a couple of violent incidents. Not condoning that, but let's see what he says about the rest of the media on the ground there.
Yeah, let's have a look.
But not all those documenting the drama were shouted down. Some were treated as heroes.
Technically, I am being shouted down. I'm shorter than all of them.
Avi Yemini, social media provocateur and Australian mouthpiece of Rebel News, the Canadian-based far-right media outfit, which has provided a platform to Mark Latham and UK and...
Oh, hold on. provided a platform besides, like, I accept that, and that looked quite good. I was quite happy for that to go nationally. People see how popular the little midget is amongst the working class. Great, and my braids looked pretty good then as well.
Yeah, it looked good.
Then he says, Rebel News, who provided a platform for Mark Latham. Now, based on that logic, wasn't Mark Latham the leader of the Labor Party?
I think he ran for the
He was the opposition leader at one point, which means the Labor Party, shame on them, gave a platform to Mark Latham, the same.
That's true. I mean, you'd think he's talking about some sort of terrorist he platformed, but this is a sitting politician.
And now he's also a sitting politician.
Well, now as well. Yeah,
he
exactly.
is. But even back then, if you target anyone that gave him a platform, the Labor Party fall into that box. I think that's important to note. And whilst I'm intercensoring the Labor... No, I'm not intercensoring. Even the Labor Party should be allowed to give Mark Latham a platform. Let's continue.
Rebel's been railing against vaccine passports and mandates, and on the streets of Melbourne, Yemini was widely welcomed.
Rebel News for the working class. You can get one of these at rebelstore.com. I just love, because even the last episode where Jan Fran was attacking us for selling merchandise. By the way, ABC has literal shops around the country where they sell merchandise. But I was really happy to see that, because I don't know if this was the effect they were going for. Same as Jan Fran, but this time as well. Our Rebel store in Australia peaked. And, you know, like people, like... You know,
is that merch as well?
Don't pretend you don't know. You just ordered one. Literally, as I walked in here, I said, rebelstore.com.au. That's where you go. Good plug. That was well played, Rukshan. But the fact is that they try to mock us by saying, it's to make us small, belittle us, by saying, he didn't not say I'm a journalist because he knows, Rebel News, it may be a media company they really don't like, but it is a media company. Oh, but look, they just sell merch. ABC sells merch, and thanks to ABC, we sold a lot of merch last week, and probably thanks to this at rebelstore.com.au, we'll sell even more merch. Thank you, Paul Barry. Let's keep watching.
But let's stand up as a nation. This is bullshit what's going on, and don't be tricked by the media, by the lies and the deceit.
Yemini was happy to stoke the anti-mainstream media sentiment, and plenty of people were watching. He racked up more than 700,000 views on one Facebook streaming clip. And this man was even more popular.
Hey guys, Rukshan here.
I call out fake news where I see it.
Yeah, go for
it.
Go
I love you,
call
Rukshan.
Yeah.
I love you, Rukshan. You are my brother from another person of colour mother. Does that work?
Yeah, that
we'll
works.
go with that.
I'm cool with that.
But I think we need to put a vote to them. Fact check. You are not more popular than me. How do we do? I reckon what we say. What we say is, okay, let's take a vote. Like this video if you think Rukshan, if you like Rukshan more. Give a heart to this video to vote for me. Yeah, because that only makes sense. They're bound to love me more. And maybe share it if you just like us both equally.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
and
I don't mind the equality side of things, but I do think I'm better looking at least.
You are slightly browner.
I am slightly browner. Yes.
Okay, so we've dispelled that myth. I think by the end we'll know.
Let's see what happens. Rukshan here. The two reps representing the protesters have gone up inside the building with John Setka and other union reps.
Rukshan Fernando, who has a wedding videography business, is a self-described independent journalist with a growing fan base on...
Hold on, self-described independent journalist. What is the definition of an independent journalist? You're independent and you're recording the news from the ground.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, independent media, all that means is that there's no corporate interest and there's no state interest.
And you're not even selling merch.
No, I'm not even selling merch.
That's why they have to go to rebelstore.com.
Go to rebelstore.com for now for my merch as well. Is it .com.au?
Well, overseas.com. Doesn't matter. But
yeah, like that's independent media, right? I'm guided by my decisions that I make as an independent.
And when you watch the feeds, which millions now have, they hear your reporting, which is unbiased. Anyways, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to break down.
Media. He live-streamed the protests for hours each day. One video clocked 2.2 million views. And his followers reportedly grew by 100,000 in just 3 days.
Just the tone in the way that he...
It's like I did something wrong by live streaming for hours.
Which firstly, I held your camera that one time where you got pepper sprayed. I held it for 5 minutes, and I tell you, man, my shoulder hurt the next day. It's heavy. It's a lot of work. Yeah. You should be actually, being given a pat on the back for the hard journalistic work you're doing. But ABC runs a chopper in the sky that try to live feed what's happening. The difference is from there you don't actually get a view of what's happening on the ground.
I think that's what's the biggest problem here, that it's from on the ground. An on-the-ground live stream for hours and hours is the issue here.
You think that's what their issue is?
That's what their issue is.
No, I think their issue is that what he focused on after is how many eyeballs you stole from ABC. That's what I think this is about.
Yeah. But, I mean, the chopper coverage is boring. Who wants to watch something from a chopper? Why would people want to watch something from a chopper?
But I think even if they did run live coverage, they wouldn't get the same sort of viewers that you get. It's just because people feel it's authentic, it's real, it's live, it's uncut. There's no you're not giving it some sort of agenda. You're literally my missus prefers to watch you than me. Cut that out.
And there were plenty of fans in the crowd.
Okay.
This is the biggest thing, is that people like us.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go back to the point before. They've never said anything when I've been attacked at protest reporting, when people hate me and violently attack me like they did to some, a very small minority did to the media. A lot of people may have shouted stuff at him, fine, but a very tiny minority actually got physical with him. When I go to these protests, the other protests, it's crowds that surround me and try to attack me, and never have they said anything. Now suddenly, when we're getting love from people, only why? Because we're actually showing the other side of the story. We're allowing people to decide for themselves by seeing what's on the ground. The example would have been at the CFMEU headquarters, where the entire media class let John Sector get away with the lie that the crowd outside, especially on that first day, were far-right, neo-Nazi, anti-vax extremists. And then people referred I saw Channel 7's story full of comments saying, "Did you even watch Rukshan's live?" Meaning, we saw who was there. And then the next day when I put out the report for Rebel News, and you could see me talking to everyone around, and they were so obviously not far-right anything. They were actually traditional Labour voters. They were union members, especially on the first day. So if not for us, ABC, the same platform here that is attacking us for having love, we're the ones pushing the fake news narrative.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the kind of love that this guy's trying to make it out to be. I think it's people just appreciative of the fact that we're showing them stuff, that we're showing them this on-the-ground reporting that's not being, corporatized or edited down to a certain narrative, and it's there for them to judge themselves. And I think people are just really happy about that. I don't think they love me. They don't know me in that way to love me in that way. They're just happy that we're actually doing an honest day's work. And that's what they're showing appreciation for.
Absolutely. I'd agree. I think people look at you and they know, and they see, anyone that's actually at those protests know how hard it is to, one, walk that far, two, to log around all that equipment, three, to be in, the face of danger. You're literally there, and you're getting pepper sprayed, you're getting attacked by police, you're actually sometimes even being targeted because they want to stop your live feed or the footy. And all you're doing is you're allowing people to see it and judge for themselves. That's a crime that ABC is really attacking you for.
Yeah, 100% I agree with that.
Freedom of choice!
And it's not just the Australian right-wing ecosystem that Fernando was feeding. Last week, he hit prime time in America.
Here now is the man who shot that...
I'm going to say I'm a little bit dirty about this. Mate, that was beautiful. You did well. You represented it, and the world is watching. And now it's a crime as an independent journalist to jump on a platform, far bigger than any we have in Australia. Because why?
Yeah.
How's that?
They reached out to me because I had the on-the-ground perspective, and they wanted that perspective, which is completely understandable. It's fine.
When CNN approaches somebody like Kevin Rudd, Media Watch have no issue with that.
That's okay.
But I see a theme here as well. I think we discussed this before. This is a old white man, this is their thing, an old white man, privileged, targeting two young, beautiful, person of colour journalists who also happen, I think 50% of us identify as women as well. So we should be celebrated by the ABC, but instead they're allowing his white privilege to knock us down.
I mean, that is definitely one interpretation. That's an interpretation that they would normally give for something like this.
I've watched too much ABC. I'm starting to subscribe.
I mean, if this happened to one of their reporters,
exactly, if it was the other way around,
they'd be like, "Oh, don't attack these, these two hardworking ethnic Australian reporters. They're being attacked for their views because of something else." But for us, it's like, oh, all of a sudden, for me, all of a sudden I'm characterized as right-wing. And I have no association with any of these kind of things my entire life, and all of a sudden I'm right-wing.
Well, you're on Fox News. Yeah. God, beautiful.
Footage, independent journalist Rukshan Fernando. Rukshan, what's happened to Australia?
And Fox's Laura Ingram, who has stoked anti-lockdown sentiment throughout the pandemic, was suitably concerned.
It looked more like something at Tiananmen Square than you'd expect from Australia.
What's wrong?
That's right, Laura. I mean, look, these are just everyday Australians, everyday Victorians.
Many protesters...
Unlike Paul, I actually, before the last major events that I was covering was in Hong Kong and was watching the CCP-style enforcement. And guess what? As an independent journalist in Hong Kong on the ground, the police didn't target me. Mm-hmm. I was more free there under CCP kind of rule than here. So what is wrong with that analogy?
No, I think the analogy that I made is fitting because anyone can see that whatever's happening in Victoria, at least, with the police and the interactions with the public, is not normal. Like, these guys are acting right now like this is just like run-of-the-mill stuff. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. And I'm just expressing that view. It's there for the world to see.
Shame on you, right-wing.
Are ordinary Victorians concerned about their right to work. Others are zealots, with a grab bag of causes, amplified on social media by the likes of Yemini and Fernando. Dr. Josh Roos, a researcher in far-right movements, told The Age Fernando is no passive...
And then he got some other white dudes to confirm it.
And seeks to bring in sympathy for protesters in the middle of a pandemic that not only are a health risk, but have a record of being violent towards the police. In that sense, he's building their narrative.
Wow. And yeah, that's a good point. They brought another white guy to attack another person of colour. And I don't subscribe to this identity politics.
No, I'm just joking about it.
We're having a laugh about it. But if this was the other way, like you just mentioned, they would certainly point that out. But wow, you running live feeds is that. You're building their narrative. So essentially showing the truth in live time is building their narrative. So maybe, just maybe, the narrative is not what we're being told by the mainstream media.
Yeah, I mean, if they're saying that I can go there with a mobile phone camera and build a narrative, what kind of narrative can these organisations build?
Who control everything.
Who control everything, newspapers, television media, have access to all these politicians. What kind of narrative can they build if they're worried about one, Sri Lankan bloke with a mobile phone?
Oh, so Sri Lankan. I heard on Sky you were Indian.
Nah, Sri Lankan. Calling me Indian is like calling an Australian a Kiwi. It's almost the same thing. Doesn't really matter.
Rita, apologies.
It's all right, Rita. All good.
She's also a person of colour.
Yes, maybe he's attracting millions of views because he's showing what is really happening and allowing people to explain why they're so upset rather than just demonising any anti-government dissent as some anti-vaxxer, neo-Nazi and conspiracy theory. After all, do you really think neo-Nazis would be chanting an Indian man's name?
What's her background? Oh, she's Persian.
Persian, yeah.
Those Persians.
Yeah, Australia's doing great. Lots of diversity in the media. That's how it should be.
All right-wing extremists.
Except here on the ABC.
Except the ABC.
Fernando told The Age that while he's disillusioned by the state government, he doesn't necessarily endorse the views of the protesters. But he's giving a platform to them without context or balance. An independent journalist, he is not. But not all those documented shouted...
Without context or balance. I reckon that was my favourite line in this entire story. That should be the tagline for the ABC. Without context or balance. And they're saying he's calling your live stream. She's not even like me Fine, maybe you can argue that because ours is a report done afterwards. So a bit like ABC, it's edited, it's produced, it's done. So maybe there's no context. You literally were giving the context and the balance. Yeah. You were giving the entire story for the entire time for all those hours.
Yeah, I mean, I can only report on the ground from what I see and from my perspective when I do give my reporting on the ground. So that's as much context and balance that you can provide on a live stream as it happens. And the viewer, because it's so unedited, it's so continuous, can also come to their different perspectives from watching that as well. It's completely available to them. Not providing context and balance is having, you know, a 20 or 30-second clip and saying that this is the totality of the day and everyone's a right-wing Nazi, like they said. Can we say that word?
Yeah, you can say it when it's when they're right-wing Nazi. That's why we're kosher.
Yeah. But you know, that's kind of how they do it, right? 30-second clip and everyone's a right-winger. But when you show an unedited live stream, people can all of a sudden see, hey, look, there's some ethnics in the crowd. There's some Indian Sikhs in the crowd. There's people from who are workers in the crowd. It's different to the story that they show later on. So I think that's what challenges these kind of organizations, traditional organizations, the most, that they can't control it anymore when it's that unedited.
To be honest, I'm actually grateful they ran that. One, because, listen, I'm the middle child of 17 children. I'm number 10. I like attention. You didn't notice that, did you?
No.
But beyond that, I think this exposes the so-called establishment, the gatekeepers of truth, for exactly what they are. They are jealous. They want to control the narrative. And they hate the fact that independent journalists, that they'll never stand up and defend. Remember, I was arrested at a number of these protests in the beginning. My security guard was arrested at a number of these protests in the beginning. Both are in the Supreme Court. So lately hasn't happened because you can see in a lot of my reports, police have really changed their tone. None of the mainstream media reported it as in reporter or journalist or a citizen journalist or whatever, all alternative media. None of them reported it. Suddenly when it happened to them, they all reported.
Yeah.
Herald Sun journalists arrested, cameraman sprayed in the face. In fact, we actually broke that story about the ages, which I don't think they would have reported.
No, I think you prompted them to report on it
because they reported 24 hours after mine.
Yeah.
So I would say they've done us a favour. Yeah. They've exposed themselves, and I'm happy with it. And I encourage Paul to do another episode. How do you feel?
I feel like this is an endorsement of the work that I do and the work that Avi does at Rebel News. You just see that when these guys are panicking in this manner and just going to these lengths to smear people like myself, we're on the right path. And I'm not as offended as I am about some of the kind of connotations and links that these people make. At the end of the day, I think for the viewers at home, they can use this to judge us and judge our character as well. And, I feel like it's an endorsement for what we do.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, Rukshan, that was good fun. I had fun.
Yeah, I had fun.
I certainly had fun. Hope you guys like it. If you like it, make sure at least do the heart, vote Avi.
No, do the like to vote for Rukshan. No, do the like.
Good on you, Rukshan.
Sri Lankan independent media in Australia is underrepresented, so just this time do the like for the Sri Lankans in Australia.
Well, Jews control the media. So. I was really happy to see that because I don't know if this was the effect they were going for. Same as Jan Fran, but this time as well. Our Rebel store in Australia peaked. And like people
is that merch as well?
Don't pretend you don't know. You just ordered one. I literally, as I walked in here, I said, rebelstore.com.au. That's where you go. Yeah.